how you doing tonight, man?
Good. How you feeling?
Man, I'm blessed and honored to have you doing this interview with the Hype magazine tonight, man. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you having me as well.
And for people who may not be familiar, can you tell the fans and listeners who you are and where you from?
Yeah, no doubt. My name is Steve Rubble, aka Zulu Gremin, also known as King ZG on all platforms. Originally from LA, but I lived in San Francisco Bay Area, New York City, and Miami, and Denver. So I've lived all over across the United States.
Now, what made you get started in breakdancing in the first place, and what made you decide you wanted to pursue it as your career?
I grew up the son of a drummer. My father's a musician. He played with a bunch of groups over the years in the 70s, like this group called Redbone. You might know this record, Come and Get Your Love. So they traveled a lot over my young life, and I'm a musician. I also produce music. And so I grew up in music, and, you know, grew up with television shows like Soul Train and, you know, Dance Fever, Solid Gold, The Gong Show, Ed Sullivan Show. All of those things exposed me to a lot at an early age. And, you know, from there, I started doing the robotic styles.
There you go, yeah.
That stuff. And, you know, and then when I saw B-boying, it was like 2 in the morning. My father had just come in from performing at a club, playing at a club, and woke me up and Style Wars was playing on PBS. And so I got a glimpse of seeing Rocksteady in the playground, getting busy. And that was it right there. That really just made me like, okay, I got my robot styles, I got my backslide, let me get some B-boy styles. So from that point, you know, and then I started a crew called Radioactive in the early 80s, and we won time zone championships. And then the very first time street dance was offered as a competition in Showstopper National Competition, we won that in '85 in Disney World.
Congrats.
Which was really well. So that was kind of the early 80s thing that really built up a lot of momentum.
When you decided to start your own crew, that takes a lot of risk and a lot, you know, a lot of, you know, added stress to it. But what was it about helping other people, you think, that made you decide to form this crew, and how satisfying was it when you were in Disney, you know, and you guys were being celebrated for what you guys had done as a group?
So, you know, traveling with my father, we landed in the Bay Area a lot of times, and I would go to the Fisherman's Wharf, and we seen a lot of, you know, first mimes and first robots and the Silver Man, the Gold Man, a lot of the, you know, seeing early pioneers like Demons of the Mind, which I became a member of Media Circus later in the years. But because of that exposure, I was seeing more than one person get down, and seeing the strutting style, which is a group style of robotic styles. That made me want to be able to do something with the group. But my next door neighbor was from Missouri, and his uncle taught him the backslide. He showed me the backslide, and him and I together as neighbors, we were like bugging out, watching TV in the mornings. We were both training in Kung Fu and Karate at the same time as well. We both have families that are in the martial arts. So martial arts and soul training, all those kind of things. The Jackson 5 at the time was, you know, a big thing as well. So all of those things had major influences, and we kind of started the group together, and he kind of had my back. There was a lot of like duet competitions back then. There would be like dance contests in the middle of skating rinks. There'd be solo and duet competitions. So I would get in the solo competitions, then we'd get in the 2 people competition, the duet. And so that was kind of, you know, we were like doing that early. That led to building a crew really fast. And you know, the early 80s, you battle everybody right away when you meet them, and then some people you build the chemistry with, and you're like, oh, you're not from far away, here we practice on this day. And that's kind of how that built.
Now, with you being from LA originally, like the dance culture is huge out there, but it may not be to other parts of the country. Can you explain, like, to you what the dance culture is like out there, and, you know, how exciting it is for dance out there?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a unique place. I would say that it's unique in separate ways, but something like New York, where New York is the melting pot city of the world, and you have all those cultural styles. LA has Hollywood, and all those same people from around the world that want to be a star or that want to be professional end up in Hollywood. And so because of that, we have our own little melting pot here, in which we have the industry. So the television, film, commercial industry kind of gets people wanting to be here so they can build their name and get their money, right? But, you know, in general, Los Angeles has pretty decent weather. Like everybody knows Cali for having pretty decent weather all year round. and as well, it's a little bit more spread out. So it's not like all jam packed like major cities are around you know the United States. So when you come here, you feel like it's kind of spread out. It's more like just neighborhoods that are spread out rather than being in the big city so much. So it kind of doesn't freak you out. Like if you just go to New York and you're from, you know, suburbia, or, you know, you're a rural person, you're like, whoa, you come in to New York City and changes everything. You're like, whoa, there's a lot of people in a short amount of space. So LA has those things to offer. But in general, you know, the resurgence of b-boying, that a lot of us ended up back here when breaking started to die down in 85, 86. It was already gone. The conscious era of hip hop, the new school era of hip hop was starting, and there was a lot of work here. Not as a b-boy, but still as a dancer. Backup dancing, freestyle dancing, more in the terms of building fashion. The fashion industry was just starting off in those late 80s, early 90s was a very big renaissance for fashion. And here is the cheapest places to make the goods. From San Diego to Orange County, printing, t-shirts, sweatshirts, all that kind of stuff. And so a lot of graffiti writers from the East Coast were here doing their fashion thing. And I was connecting with Doze from Rocksteady here in LA a lot. I moved back to LA in 87, 86.
Okay.
And I graduated high school in 88. And I joined gymnastics just so I had a place to practice breaking. And, you know, I got on pommel horse and ended up placing fourth place in pommel horse, which was crazy because everything was the opposite direction. I break counterclock, and when you're in gymnastics, you have to, pommel horse has to be clock. So I learned to do everything the opposite direction, which was great. You know, in that instance, I built a new crew with another guy from the Bronx here in LA in 86. The crew is called United We Stand. And this is my second crew. And so my first crew is Radioactive in Denver. Second crew, United We Stand, in 86 here in LA. And it was all out everything, like graffiti writers, MCs, DJs, B-boys, poppers. And it was like all the people that didn't want to let go of the old school that were starting to come together. And we met up with a guy named DJ Tony G, who's a legend from the K-Day Mixmasters, who produced a lot of the big records. So Mark Ski and myself became a rap group. I started rapping in 86.
Yeah, you say, dope.
Yeah, so when b-boying started cooling down, I started rapping and doing a lot more graph. And we got with Tony G. We all both wrote songs for Kid Frost. I was choreographing Kid Frost. You see me dancing in the La Raza video and Yastuba video, all of Kid Frost stuff, as well as Melamene stuff. So these are all artists that were produced by Tony G. Melamene, Kid Frost. And because we were on that label, I ended up choreographing another artist that went gold at the time, Timmy T. So I was choreographing freestyle music, hip hop music, R&B music all at the same time, and recording our first records. And
what was the first instance where you were a choreographer, not just break dancing and doing it with your crew, but where you actually were on assignment for a video or creating a treatment or something like that?
So while I was, you know, this goes all the way back to Denver and Radioactive, because early on we won, you know, we were in like the top 5 crews of the city, right? We would get some firsts, some seconds, some thirds. It would all be random. But one thing was good, definitely, is we were professional. So back then in 85, mainly 85 is mainly the choreography stuff. I started choreographing our own shows for the NBA halftime shows. So the Lakers and the Nuggets. Yeah. For the Denver Nuggets halftime shows. So against the Lakers, against the Supersonics, against the Houston Rockets. So I got to choreograph 3 NBA shows back then. A music video called Magic Box with Jumping Joe Hendrix, a BMX trickster that had just jumped over 7 trucks in Vegas, who was very famous on That's Incredible, or one of the shows back then. So I choreographed some stuff with them, and then we did a show called live shows for Carousel Days for the TV show Fame. So that's with all the cast of the TV show Fame. So we were doing live shows with them, and so got to choreograph some really interesting things. And then we choreographed that piece that won the Time Zone Championship and then the Nationwide Championship for Showstopper, which is the first time street dance was ever even accepted for choreography. You know,
that's amazing.
It's a interesting time that we went through. You know, it was a commercial time, so we went through it the commercial way. There's a lot of embarrassing pictures from back then of, you know, what to do and what not to do, and what to wear, what not to wear, things like that. But you know how the 80s was like that. We're all over the place.
Now, you know, we're celebrating 50 years of hip hop right now, so I'm so excited to have you here to represent the breakdancing culture. I don't think a lot of people give you guys the homage that's due, because without breakdancing, a lot of this stuff doesn't happen. But for you and, you know, being a representative of breakdance, how exciting is it to know you guys, it is 50 years of hip hop, and, you know, you guys have had a major part in the successes.
You know, I I appreciate um, I appreciate the fact that it's being celebrated.
Yeah.
Remember, when they say 50 years of hip hop, it's 50 years of commercial hip hop,
Commercial.
of them
Yeah.
recognizing hip hop.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we've been having, you know, I'm a former member of Zulu Nation for many, many years, and we've had many debates on where things have happened and where things have started. And we have a lot of really rare archives that go back. And, you know, there's some people that we definitely want to celebrate and always mention that even go further back than where we've always gone back. But this is
Right.
not the time. To answer that question, is I'm appreciative that the world is celebrating hip hop culture at any level.
Yeah.
I've gone through the
Yeah.
process. We've gone, you know, I've helped institutionalize not just the dance forms of hip hop culture, but the art forms, where the word graffiti could
Yeah.
be the most terrible word, and we teach the form of writing in schools. You know, so I've gone through the machine in terms of having the most red tape to deal with.
Yeah.
Being an educator, I teach in the LAUSD. You know, I have to jump through mad hoops just to work with them. You know, so I'm really happy that now in its 50th year, we're proud to say that breaking is now an Olympic sport.
Yeah,
But
that's
it's
amazing.
always been our culture, so it can't be at the sacrifice of our culture.
Yeah.
It's just another thing that they're celebrating us as athletes because of how dangerous it is. And I fought for b-boys to get hazard pay when they're on set back in the 80s, mid 80s and late 80s for some of the commercial things that I did. I choreographed Celine Dion's first video in America.
Wow.
And we were dancing on Venice Beach on concrete slabs that they used for picnic tables, and asked to break about elevated around 2 feet in the air. So I was able to get hazard pay for
right, because you're hurt. Yeah, risky.
You see what I mean? So things like that over the years. The hip hop shop was a very important place. At the end of the 80s and beginning of the 90s, we had a place on Melrose with Hex, Omega, Mark Ski, Tunes, Chino from B-Boy Records, Irie Science, who's also known as Rocka from Dilated Peoples. All of us had this cool spot on Melrose, and that was like the first place, the first retail place that hip-hop goods were sold, customized, custom, completely unique, one of ones. And, you know, a lot of things happened. We brought back clothing brands and all kinds of cool things, like, you know, started to pioneer things. And at that time, a PBS special that was done called Great Performances featured Crazy Legs and Mr. Wiggles.
Yeah,
and it brought them to the West Coast. And those helped me get back in touch with everybody again around that time, 1990. And that was a really big time for me because not only did I battled legs to get back in Rocksteady Crew because I had already met with them in the 85, but everything started to die down. Now, and I battled them in Whipper Whip's living room from the Fantastic Five, which is really interesting. Yeah. And that from that moment, Rocksteady Crew, what was happening with Rocksteady Crew, the hip hop shop, and the first off-Broadway show, Get Originals and Jam on the Groove, sparked off. And, you know, we did a TV show, MTV The Grind, which was like probably one of the most important segments that came out to reintroduce breaking in 1990s to kids again, all over to another generation.
That's dope. Now, you mentioned Zulu Nation. Your name is Zulu Gremlin. Like, how did you meet up with Zulu? And, you know, and from your viewpoint, you are a historian of hip hop. How important was Zulu Nation to what we call hip hop today? And from your viewpoint,
so I actually got down with Zulu Nation in 1985 just because I went and bought Renegades of Funk record. It's done in graffiti. I still have it right there, and on it in the back, it says "Join the Zulu Nation" and send your. And it has an address, and it's actually Ahmed Henderson's address at the time. So one of the council members. So I sent in $25, my filled out registration, and sent it in the mail. And they sent me my badge, and I still have my. I'm member 1025 or something like that, like from back then, 1985. of the Universal Zulu Nation when they just started the Universal Zulu Nation. And so I paid my way in just like a kid, 14-year-old kid, just wanted to get down. But then I got down with Rocksteady Crew and then found out Rocksteady Crew was its own chapter in itself.
Yeah.
And then my crew, United We Stand, we became a part of a chapter in the West Coast. Doe's had a chapter called Mutada Tribe, and we had the West Coast Zulu Kings. So I became part of several different chapters, and I started starting chapters, West Coast Rocksteady chapters in San Diego, San Francisco, LA. I was, on a mission of building, building.
That's
So,
amazing.
This is, yeah, all of this was very important, but the importance of Zulu Nation has always been, Zulu Nation has been one of the few organizations that bring people together, all elements, writers, MCs, DJs, and even people that are in the media or people, record companies. I performed at the New Music Seminar in 1991, 92, and it was because of my contacts within Zulu Nation with Doe's, Dulce, Shauna, Lucky Strike, rest in peace. So these are a lot of people that were all involved in these high impact music conventions through NYU, through the hip hop organizations in the city. And it's very important. It was my first, let's say, starting my pillars of enlightenment, of like knowing about all cultures, knowing about all religions at one time while dealing with them together in meetings, going to Bronx River to go to these meetings every week. I was learning a lot. We were boycotting Columbus Day since back then. We were doing all these things to try to be active. Ernie was a photographer, the Native American guy. He was out there with us all the time. We're always doing things like being proactive, show up here, show up there, rally for this, rally for that. And, that was, for me, it was very important because we were like the real hip hop culture in the midst of the commercial hip hop music being built. Rap music. And we love rappers, but rappers are supposed to love the culture and respect the culture. And so the second you push dancers in the back and say, you're my backup dancer and you can never do a solo, there's no cameo for you, then you're just a support system. You're no longer our crew. Look at what happened with rappers now. It used to be a DJ and a rapper. Now it's just a rapper. So they've lost their chemistry, much less with the dancers. So divide and conquer because of money. I watch rappers go from getting produced by dope producers to producing their own records.
In-house and everything now.
And so what it is. It's business, right? So, we learned the hard way by losing our publishing, by losing our writers' credits, by getting burnt in different ways with bad contracts, and then this is the business. So how do we maintain both? You know what I'm saying?
You mentioned stuff you're doing in the LA school system, so I want to highlight that for you. Like, how did you get that opportunity, and what is it you got doing, in the schools? Because I think it's an amazing thing you're doing to give back. But can you give us a little bit of what it is?
Definitely. So I work with a nonprofit organization out here called No Easy Props, and there's many different dancers that work in it. It's led by Asia One. She's a big girl from Denver who lives here in LA, and so we are in the school system. We have many different programs. I help build some of the programs, and so I'm kind of the point on some of the programs for her. I help kind of build them out. We have assemblies we do. We have Hip Hop 101, which is art and dance inside the school system. We have a program that I'm also working with her and another nonprofit, which is called For Youth, which is Fortify Our Rebel Youth, which is just empowering the youth, giving them an opportunity to learn, giving great artists / educators a chance to teach and pass on their traditions. And I'm one of those many. There's a lot of us that are doing it, maybe about a dozen or so here in LA. The program exists in different cities, like Denver, LA, I think in the Bay Area, possibly San Francisco, or Oakland. But, it's really cool because what we're doing in the school system is we started off in the after school programs, and then the after school program started building clubism, and we can talk about how clubism is replacing sports. Teamism. Instead of having a team that costs a lot of money, they just have a club. And then now that breaking is a sport, now we go from teaching artists to coaches. So we have two things that are happening in the school system. We're teaching, during the pandemic, I taught over 1,000 Zoom classes, all of Watts, all the schools throughout Watts, Inglewood, throughout the greater LA, South Central, Whittier. And then after the pandemic, they brought us back and we've been teaching in person.
That's
And so,
amazing.
yeah, and then the assembly is the same thing. We're out doing assemblies for the entire schools. I just choreographed Shirley Elementary, the entire fourth and fifth grade for their
Okay.
culminations.
Now,
So, you know,
when you're out in these schools, you know, I know you're a humble person, you can tell, but did they know you're a king? Did they know like you've done all this amazing stuff, or did they just know you're the person that's there trying to help them, you know, learn the skill?
so when
Do
we
they
do
know?
the assemblies, we introduce ourselves, and I give them
Yeah.
like a short thing. And none of these children know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about when I say I choreographed Naughty by Nature and House of Pain and Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force. They don't know. But
Yeah.
when I say Justin Bieber and Rihanna
Yeah.
and Chris Brown, they're like, oh. Or if I mention a movie, Step Up 2, Step Up 3D, or Dance with the
Yeah.
Stars, those kind of things, they respond to that. So because of the generation gap, they respond to different things. But that's usually during the assembly, and then when we get to do some solos. But when we're in class, I kind of assume the coach's role right away, a teacher's role.
Yeah.
I'm natural to this. I've been teaching for a very long time, so
Yeah.
I have we work fast, and they ask me
Mm-hmm.
questions. They always ask me, how do I get my gold teeth? And I tell them my motorcycle accident. There's a lot of communication, but it's not really that they're starstruck like that. They're just happy that they're getting the attention,
Yeah.
that they're learning the backslide for the first time, or a
Yeah.
coffee grinder, or a swipe, or something.
What's
You know, and
so what's the first move people should, you know, everybody thinks the robotic, but from your viewpoint, what's a move people can learn themselves? Like what's the first one people usually do where they know, yo, I actually could be good at this? Like, is there something they do to show you that, or?
I think the most important thing is, because we're talking about dance, is rhythm. So we always start with rhythm. And so just listening to music and showing that they can listen to the music and let the music lead them, to be able to do a soul clap or a soul snap is so important. To just be able to do a two-step, which is
Yeah.
the basis of a top rock.
Yeah.
So I think that the concepts of teaching them how to rock their body, bounce to the beat, and step to the beat, and shuffle their feet,
Yeah.
those are the four concepts that they can do any dance style. It doesn't even matter what genre it is, really,
Yeah.
right? Or style. As long as they get these concepts. So I introduce these concepts, and it's incredible to see their facial expressions
Yeah.
when they get something. You know,
Yeah,
we
when
do
they get
some
it, like I can't
crisscross.
do it. Yeah, and then all of a
Yeah,
sudden, like, I got it.
yeah. Everybody loves to shuffle their feet right away. They like to do 2 feet at the same time. So we do crisscross applesauce, which is this little zigzag
Yeah.
thing with your feet, and they love that right away. And it's so good because it gets their legs going, gets their hearts going. You can see them huffing and puffing after, like, they're all sweaty. And, you know, that's a good thing because we want the kids to stay active, you know.
Yes.
And one door cracks open the door to the other styles, too. So they all love to see the robotic styles. They like to see
Yeah.
a cool little wave or something.
Yeah.
You know, the backslide or the moonwalk, they love that. So, you know, these are all little things that really just open those doors for them.
Now you've always been a big into training, but I know you got a major opportunity coming up next year. You know, with the team Romania. How did that opportunity come about, and how does it feel to know that you're going to get this amazing opportunity to teach them and, you know, go for the gold, as we say?
So, and just to rewind back a little, you know, I met the representative of the team through another brand. So I worked with a lot of different brands over the year. During the year's time, we call it like the dance season, right?
Yeah.
It's usually ends in August, mid-August, and then immediately after it starts all over again. So August is like the starting and end point, right? So right now we're really getting close towards the end of the dance season, right? So the dance season, we have, I work with several brands. Hip Hop International, World Battles are 2 of the brands.
Okay.
And some of the judges, they come from different parts of the world. And so one of the judges is from Romania, and he's a b-boy, former b-boy, and a soccer player out there.
Oh,
he plays soccer, or former soccer player out there. And so we built a relationship with all the different judges. I worked as a head judge for that brand for many years. So I've talked with those guys a lot, intense about judging, and they know how passionate I am about the culture. And then they see me, what I do when I teach, and they're like, oh, okay, they know I'm the real thing, not a commercial dancer, but I actually am like real deep in this. So when he got the opportunity to lead the Romanian team, he called me and asked me to be the international trainer. And he wanted me to come immediately out there, but I needed to, you know, I'm working here, so I had to find the time. But we went out to I already went out and did the first training session with them a couple months back. And so basically, what I did is my wife and I, as a team, went out there. She helped build a really extensive, cool series of documents
Yeah.
and images so I can introduce them to the culture. And
Mm-hmm.
she really put it together like so I can just like hit them with everything, like
Yeah.
every element through timelines and
That's
all the different
amazing.
styles and music content, like trying to get them to understand that this is a reaction to music. It's a
Yeah.
reaction to living in these different areas, regions. And I taught them, and then we trained. And there's a big difference between teaching, then training, and rehearsing, and doing technical things. So I went through a whole process with them over a couple days' time
Mm-hmm.
at their training facility in Regin, where
Okay.
their Olympic training facility is. It's a really beautiful place. It's like a big castle that we're in. It was like Hogwarts. We're in this humongous Hogwarts castle. There's children in another school, elementary school, on the lower level, and we're above them training in this beautiful ballroom. Beautiful,
Now,
so beautiful.
is there any kind of language barriers over there, or are they familiar with the music already, or is this kind of a brand new thing for them?
So they're familiar with the music and they speak English, but it's their
Dope.
second language. So
Yeah.
many of them struggle with the language, in which that makes it another thing. So we definitely had translators on hand. We had to definitely go over a couple of different things. We answered questions. We went over
Yeah.
things a lot. But yeah, it was for them to make it on the team. These children, and some of them were adults, had been
Yeah.
breaking for several years.
Yeah.
There was a couple of newbies in there, and they're training young children, very, very young, to go through the process.
Yeah.
Remember, next year will be the Olympics in
Yeah.
Paris, and then 4 years later we'll be in Los Angeles. So
Oh,
they're
so it's
training
coming
for
home.
5 years right now. Some of the students in there, some of these athletes now are just training with 5 years in their mind. I'm not ready for next year, but I'm going to see if 5 years could be my
Yeah,
time.
they got a long-term goal that they're trying to achieve. That's amazing. And we'll go back, like you've been through it all this time, all the different ups and downs and everything that comes with being in this culture. But now you're at the Olympics. Like that's got to be. Did you ever imagine that when you first became, in getting into it, that it would eventually lead to you traveling the world, being the trainer for the Olympics and all this other dope stuff you've had a chance to do?
So my parents and my family's from Los Angeles, and even while I was in Denver during the early 80s, I went back and forth to LA. And in 84, the Olympics that was in Los Angeles, the last time it was in Los Angeles, they actually hired 100 B-boys to break at the opening ceremony.
Oh
So if you
wow.
look back at footage, you'll see that there's footage of a bunch of people doing windmills and head
Mm-hmm.
spins at the opening ceremony. So since 84, I didn't have to imagine it. I actually
You already seen
saw
it?
it.
Yeah.
I saw it on TV and I was like, they're doing what I do. It's exactly where it's supposed to be. Movies are out, TV shows are out. Remember, we've seen this. We're living this
Yeah.
right now. 84 is like we're being given it all right now, right then. The first stages of it. And so at that point, seeing it at the Olympic level, we were already like, it should be a sport. Some
Yeah.
of us, right?
Yeah.
But that was the next year is when the media said it was a passing fad. And by 86, it was gone.
Yeah.
So only the real ones that stayed with it were somewhere deep inside those neighborhoods, keeping it alive.
Yeah.
And, there wasn't many. I traveled a lot of cities looking for them. But through the years, we tried to get it to be Olympic sport. I produced a bunch of events while I was living in Miami during the early 90s. And I was working at all these different conventions. Like,
Okay.
during that time, it was a big time for conventions from the early 90s to the mid 90s. It was all about music conventions, conferences, and those kind of things. So I did one in Miami, and we were on the same quest. So we're trying to get young kids to break, trying to get old B-boys to keep breaking, but trying to get people in Europe to know that we still do it, the young ones and the old ones.
Yeah.
Because in Europe, they were still trying to keep it alive, just like we were. So, I mean, we were all thinking the same things, but there was no love for breaking. So imagine, it wasn't thought of like, oh, it's going to be a sport yet, because when it's so loose, it's loosely knit, and it's so opinionated, and the way we judge is like 3, 2, 1, just point at somebody. It's even rude, like just point at somebody. It's not even very, it's not Olympic ready at that point.
Right.
The events we did in the late 90s made the culture Olympic ready. It's because we organized events.
You got the
now
structure.
People are going there just to watch competitions. Now it's not like a jam no more that you're dancing the whole time. Now you have to watch 100 dancers to see who's the best. So it became a lot of spectator stuff. So for those that were people that wanted to dance, they excused themselves and went on the side. But the people that wanted to see who was the best, they stuck around to see it.
To see. Yeah.
And that was the first organized competition. And this we're talking about from 95 to 2000 or 2003, were the years of all the big events starting to happen. And from that, you have what we did with Red Bull. I produced the first BC one in America.
Oh,
and
wow. Okay.
So this is now the 2000s. And once the big companies get it, you know it's about to be on, because they're not playing. They're all
put the money
lots
behind
of money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it was just a race. Now you have like just a couple companies in the sector. It's still wide open. There's so much room for other companies. Because I'm just an international trainer for Romania, I'm also a national trainer here in the US. So every Thursday we train athletes that are still trying to be in the Olympics here in Los Angeles and West LA at Capo.
Yeah.
And yeah. So we have a lot of cool things that we're still doing, and we're currently helping, you know, athletes train.
I saw
some of the athletes
I saw the Thursday. I was going to ask you about your Thursday rehearsal practices, because I gotta imagine they're not your typical rehearsal. So what's an average rehearsal for you? How many hours is it, and how intense is it to memorize or learn these routines that you guys are able to do?
So let me make sure we're talking about two different things. So our rehearsals are for our performances, and those are usually 2 to 4 hours, and it's intense with learning choreography.
Yep.
What we're doing on Thursdays is Olympic training for athletes so they're entering competitions that are sanctioned by the WDSF. So they're just going to be in the Olympics. They're all just trying to earn enough points, enough wins to get into the Olympics. So what we're doing on Thursdays is we have 2 rooms. One room that has like a regular floor that's it's like a rubbery type of floor, but it's not smooth. It's just a good floor so they can practice their footwork and their text and their moves, their blow-ups. And then we have another room that has linoleum all the way across the entire floor. And so we have 2 different spaces. We have trainers that come in, both for the beginning to stretch people out, as well as at the end to cool people down and stretch them out after training.
Yeah.
So it's a really great thing. We offer some refreshments and some healthy snacks while they're there. We put up a work regimen on the wall of reminding them what breaking is, like the mathematic equation, and then what judges are looking for on the scorecards. And then we train them and we ask them to build their metrics. We give them booklets and pens and paper and tell them, if you top rock for a minute, every time you come, add another 10 seconds or 30 seconds to your thing to get more and more stamina. If you can do, 10 flares, come and do 11 next time, just to keep pushing yourself or whatever it is. The idea is just building their metrics and kind of logging everything that they're doing. If they just keep going and going and going, they can kind of look at what they haven't been practicing, and then they can kind of utilize those tools to build their sets when they battle. And then we just, we critique them. We talk about things, ideas and ways, maybe technical ways that can make a move look easier or be more difficult and look easier. Those all different things, man. It's so many different things, but there's male and females training at their own tempo, and they have a lot of wins and losses under their belts already. A lot of them winning a lot of these Red Bull events around the United States. So, they're training really hard with like intent to win money.
Yeah. So with you, you've been very successful as becoming a judge for these competitions. I understand you've had something to do with the point system or figuring out the structure, like you said, it was missing earlier. So, what is that system, and how does it feel to know that people are using it as they do the breakdancing as a way to know the score system? Because it's really dope that they like it that much that they implemented it.
Yeah. So what I have is, my brand is called Break Sport, and I've had it since the early 90s. And it was a scoring system that we used for all of my events. And when I became a head judge of other brands, I used my scoring system for all of their events as well. Yeah. So what I did is build a very similar, just a 10-point scoring system that was 10% of 10 to make it 100% of a person. We didn't have pointing. There's none of that stuff that's in it. But it's a specific scoring system that doesn't borrow from different forms of English. The problem with some different scoring systems is that you can't use word like flavor and then style. Like if you're going to use the word flavor, then you have to stay in the Ebonics words.
Okay.
Like, keep using Ebonics. If you're going to say dope, don't say dope and then say good.
Right.
Because then we're like, which one is what? or,
Right.
you know what I mean? You have to choose,
Yep.
right? So the break sport scoring system is foolproof because it uses conversational English that can be translated to any language.
Dope.
And it doesn't use words that don't pertain.
Mm.
Like, it's very simple and straightforward, and 10% of a person, so that you can gauge what your ranking is. And the idea
Yep.
is to rank people so that you can be able to create a great production and hopefully have the two strongest meet in the finals. And there's always the chance of an upset.
Yeah.
So that it's built for optimism of viewing and of competing. It's
Yeah.
for both competitor and for viewer, especially for the judge, because a judge doesn't want to see the two strongest people go out at it and then the two weakest people later on. That
Right.
wouldn't be climactic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when they rank, now they have strategy. They can rank themselves lower by doing less and
Mm.
end up being the strongest.
Yeah.
That's if they have strategy. And that's what's good about our training thing as well, is that I have this thing called the 10-point strategy of things that are very important for people to know the way judges think,
Mm.
not just how they score
Yeah.
or what they score. It's how they score and how they think to get to that score.
Yeah.
You know, so all of this is going to be very important because as we move forward, there's going to be a lot of debates on, is the Olympic system correct? Is
Mm.
it
Yeah.
foolproof? Is it authentic to the culture and to the sport? And can we understand it and decipher it? And can it be translated to other languages?
Have
So
you
what
guys?
I do is, yeah, and so what I do is I use my break sport scoring system so that they understand how to build their metrics for
Mm.
all brands. And
Yeah.
the Olympics is just one brand.
Yeah. I love it. Have you guys seen from the Olympics what they're planning to do, what their scoring systems are, or are you guys going
Yes.
into it blind at this time?
Yes. So we have athletes that are already using the scoring system of the Olympics because they're right now currently trying to
Yeah.
build their points and to get their wins. So we go in that scoring system and we talk about what we think they can do with that system. Because
Dope.
remember, strategy says every brand has a different system.
Yep.
How do I win? Know that system and a
Yep.
strategy to win that system. So the competitors that come in, they spend a lot of time on just strategy for that system alone. But there's other systems that exist that we also spend time to build strategy for. And that's what's good about the break sport scoring system. It's general for
Yeah.
all different scoring systems. So if they can do good on that scoring system, they
Yeah.
generally can do good on other scoring systems.
Yeah, even if if they can do good on the break sports scoring system, it's you guys are so technical or so good at it that they can easily get past those other scoring. I don't want to knock it down, but just saying you guys are focused on the real technique. You guys are professionals, so you know what to look for. So if they do good on your scoring system, you know they're going to do good on the other ones. Now you
Yeah,
have the brand Break Sport. That's an amazing brand. What made you create your own merchandise? And I seen the action figure you got, so that's really dope. Like, so how did you guys create your brand, your merchandise, and start that out?
Yeah, so while I was doing this Broadway show called Jam on the Groove, we started building. This is the end of the crew era. This is
Mm.
in 1991, 92. That was the end of the crew era
Okay.
specifically for us. Remember,
Yeah.
Rocksteady Crew is one of the last crews that exist in breaking and in hip hop. Everything becomes business after
Yeah.
that. They're all companies. So Rocksteady Crew became another company at this time, and instead of it being a corporation with all of us in it, now all of us made our own companies. So
Mm.
everybody made a company at this time. So
Yeah.
I was already functioning as a company called Lovely Milk, and I was a clothing brand here in the West Coast. And so at that time, I had built the break sports scoring system because I was thinking about having contests, dance contests.
Yeah.
And Ken Swift and I built a brand called the Bonnie and Clyde Battle while we were doing this time, which was going to be male and females battling together.
Okay.
And so we were innovating all these ideas while we're on a Broadway show traveling around the world. We spent a lot of time in France, Austria, Japan, all these countries in theater houses for like a month straight. So we had a lot of time on our hands, just perform and then practice and then chilling out. So I would be making merchandise. We'd be making merchandise, selling it all around the world already,
Dope.
going to hip hop stores, selling gear. And so I had an idea to have the break sports scoring system first. And I wanted it just to be like the sporty aspects of breaking, like the competition.
Yeah.
How are we going to score these battles when we have them?
Yeah.
So I started devising this up, and I threw contests, and I hired all my own friends. I had Ken Swift and Handyman from the movie Breaking. The guy was on crutches in the movie
Yeah,
Breaking.
yeah.
Like all my own friends, old friends, and I was just asking them, right, here's how I have it set up to score, and then we would all bump heads. Nah, this is how we should score. This is how we should score. So we put all the things from the old guys and the young guys in one pot.
That's
And I just started taking things out that were duplicated. And everything that was like everybody saying the same thing in a different way, we just tried to find the easiest way to explain it so that we all understood it. The idea is you need to make a system that the old school can understand and the youngest, most technical scientist of breakdancing should be able to understand. They should both be able to understand the same system. And so I made up a system that was built off of ones and zeros. The old school says either you're fresh or you're not. That's the old school.
Yeah.
Nah, you're not dope. Nah, you ain't fresh. It's
Yeah,
a
you only
record.
got
You
two
ain't
options.
fresh, right?
Yeah.
Either you're fresh or you're not. Now, the new school is the era of how much, how gray area it is. How many likes do you have? How many don't you have? All that gray area. That's 10, counting to 10. So you can have 5 is exactly in the middle, which would be average.
Yeah.
Anything below 5 is below average. Anything above 5 is above average.
Okay.
Then you just go to after 7, which is perfectly in the middle, then you're at the elite level. So now we identify these levels just by the young people's mentality of being scientists. But still, the old school is still if you're fresh or not fresh.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. The break sports scoring system always made sense to the old school and to the young athletes, and that's important. And as we move forward, I'll be doing a lot of commentating, a lot of reviews. I'm already doing it now, watching battles and talking about did the scoring system work? Did the judges use the scoring system properly?
Yeah.
Did the right person win? Did the right person win for the right reason?
I like it because you guys are filling a void. You didn't complain about what was wrong. You went and fixed it, but you're open to suggestions from the other people. And then now you're going to go and review it. You're not like, oh, well, we did it, so it's what it is. It's a constant growing, changing process. So I salute you on that because it shows you really care. You're not trying to say it's my decision. You're saying I want to fix the problem. So help me figure out these solutions. And that's really dope. Now I know you're people with my friend Essence. How did you guys meet up, and what made you guys decide to start working together?
I've been doing records for a long time, and most of it just very underground. Like some of my music is in films or television shows or documentaries. And then once it does, I go ahead and just release it. I have a publishing company, Zulu Gremin Publishing with BMI. So I'll just release it on the under, not even, I know I don't have the money to market it properly, so I don't really try to really do that. And I'm not like a social network guy, too much. I'm more of a producer. I actually making things every day. So I met Essence working with an independent record company here. He was working with the same people, and both of us were kind of doing the same thing at the same time. But I wasn't having very good, fortune in that what we were doing, and I think he was feeling the exact same way at the same time. And I reached out to him. I was like, I need to get my music out, like in a safer way, a clean way that I can understand it. And he reached out and he put it together on his own. Like big ups to Essence. Essence went in and did the things that that most of us have a really big stress with, and maybe are like a little bit intimidated to even try. Set up all the platforms, set up distribution, set up a record label, and put it all together and be able to offer it to people in a transparent way. So we reached out, we talked about different things. He knows my pedigree. He knows what I'm up to. It's like I'm not like making a record and trying to promote one song or something. He knows like I'm living this lifestyle and I do a lot. And we're trying to figure out a lot. We've already released 34 records.
I was gonna say you've been very active. I was looking through some of your catalog. Like you really are putting out content.
Yeah, and like out of the 34 records, like 20 of them were used in films and documentaries and things like that. So it was all because of situations, right? And like doing things that I have fun. Like my entire family is involved in hip hop culture. We make songs together, my wife, my children. So we released that kind of stuff, just having fun with it, because we perform
Yeah.
it in
Yeah.
colleges all over the world. We
Yeah.
perform, which is super underground. Like, it's, you know, you would have to know to even get it. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like hip hop runs through our veins, and you can see it. Not many people know what strutting is, but my
Yeah.
daughters are masters of strutting, and my oldest daughter is 22, my youngest is 14. You see what I mean?
Mm.
And when you mention the toys, like, here's one of them that we just finished
Yeah,
and
that's
packaged all the way.
amazing.
There's a Zulu Gremin. This is my son's work. So my son is an artist and a photographer, and he does the 3D printing. He does the molds. He makes molds. He does all the painting. He does cut and sew for the clothing. You know, he's all over it. He does some really cool things with diorama shoots, miniatures, to scale.
Yeah,
So we did a
that's so
lot
dope.
of cool things. We did customizing all of our clothing, so it's all wearing the same break sports gear. We customized everything,
Yeah,
and, you know,
I
we
can
have a
see.
lot of fun with it. You
Yeah,
know.
that's really dope, because everybody has a merch line right now, but they don't have action figures. And then you're a break day, you're a choreographer, so you got to have an action figure. You could have them bent different ways. You know, it tell a story. You know, I know I seen you also are doing something with Netflix. Once again, always keeping you know, the culture and telling the story. How did you get this opportunity with Netflix for Champs? And, you know, what's the concept of this great project?
So I'm not sure with what I'm not sure if it's going to be signed to Netflix now, or if it might go to Peacock.
Okay.
I know that he's in talks with both of them right now, but James Jury Prize brought me in with Carrie from Carnival, and they brought me in to do a segment for a documentary called Champ. It's a documentary about street dancers all over the United States, from the old school to the new. A lot of Hollywood celebrities, a lot of pioneers are in it. They brought me in to do a segment, and they liked what I did with the segment, and then they asked me to come back in and do another segment. And then I became the music director for the entire show. We
Wow.
finished 2 episodes already, and it's in talks right now. But he brought me, while we were doing that, he hooked me up with doing a song in a movie called Wayward, which was
Okay.
box office released in
Hmm.
select cities. I think it was in Atlanta, Georgia. I think maybe in North Carolina, a couple of different select states and cities around the United States. And then it went direct to BET right after that, maybe about a week later, 2 weeks later. So because of James Jury Prize, I got that BET. It's called Wayward,
Oh,
and one of my tracks plays like during when they're driving up. It's like I think it's like a thriller
okay.
film, which is crazy. But yeah, so we just finished this TV show, 2 episodes. I think we're slated for 5, and yeah, we're already in talks with companies right now, and they're already excited about it. And it's perfect timing, because right now, as we're entering summer and
Yeah,
getting ready, we'll be finishing dance season
yeah.
with a big bang, and then be able to start another one. So, you know, along with the school system, it kind of mirrors the school system a little bit.
That's dope. And like you said, you're giving back to the schools with the programs you're doing. I seen you were. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. I seen you were at Purdue University recently in March. Like, so I'm trying to visualize, what is it? Are you coming in and you're dancing for students? Are you coming in to talk to them as a hip hop historian? Like, what is it like when you come into these colleges? What's that experience?
So with Purdue, there's a couple different things happening over there. And shout out to my man Saad and the Boiler Breakers, the B-Boy organization that's on the campus at Purdue.
Okay.
And so they brought Ken Swift and myself out the first time. And what we did then was documenting the progression of media from VHS to DVD.
Yeah.
And during that time is the time that I'm talking about, the 90s, when we were doing events in the late 90s that were all on VHS, and right when it turned to the 2000s, everything flipped to DVD.
Yeah.
So they're documenting hip hop through the scope of VHS at first. And I produced around 25 films over the years, all battle events, my events, basically.
Yeah.
I'd make films out of those events. And so they have several of my films there that they were digitizing. So I did some interviews about the films, and then we taught master classes. Ken taught a b-boy master class, and I taught a strutting master class the first time. And then I came back again. The next time I came back to Purdue, I was there for the Asian student body. They have an Asian breaking club just Asian
Yeah.
breaking club, and I was there to be a judge for an Asian breaking competition from schools like
So,
Michigan, Michigan State, and University of Illinois, Indiana, all
yeah.
these different states in the Midwest. They all have Chinese or
Yeah.
Asian breaking
It's huge.
clubs, which is
Yeah.
dope. Yeah. So I was there for that. And then the next time I came out, it was to do another interview. And we were doing interviews, and then we judged a dance competition at the event.
So,
But most recently, I was there because we were doing a big thing about breaking being in the Olympics, becoming a
yeah.
sport.
That's dope.
I also taught a master class there and had a couple other educators come out that also teach that to come participate with me to hang out during my class to see what I do, but also a couple Olympians.
Yeah.
Pepsi's one of the females that's a U.S. Olympian. She came and trained with me,
Wow.
which is really cool. And it's always good to pass on old school gems and new perspectives to people that are very well trained and have a chance to be, going for the gold as well.
Definitely.
So we utilize the 3 hours to just train really hard with these foreign, students from all different places that are going to school at Purdue.
Is that a lane you're seeing yourself in moving to the future? Maybe more like teaching people on YouTube how to break dance, or going into these colleges? Because with the success of Jabberwockies in Vegas, like breakdancing is an all-time high right now. So I know in colleges around the world they're interested in getting into it. So is that something you and your team are thinking about getting into?
So I've been teaching in the colleges now my 12th year.
Okay.
This is 12 years. So there's programs like Rock the School Bells in the Bay Area at Skyline College that's been going on 12 years. This is 13 years
Dope.
now. Schools like Cornell University, Purdue, NYU, UCLA, USC. I just taught at UCLA in Ken's program 2 days ago.
Okay.
So I teach at colleges. I've been teaching at colleges. While I was in Cleveland doing the first induction of hip hop culture in '99 at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I taught there and I filmed a segment for Teen Summit for BET at the university in Cleveland. So yeah, these are all college things. Like I've been teaching it. The first college I taught was at the University of Southern Colorado, and that was in 1985.
Okay.
Far back.
Now, I know you said it's coming to an end for the dance season, but anything you got coming up that we can circle on the calendar for you or be on the lookout for?
A bunch of stuff coming up. So we have the World Battles coming up. That's going to be in, I believe it's in Phoenix, Arizona this year.
Okay.
We have B-Boy Summit coming up in LA, and EPMD is going to be performing. I'll be hosting that. We have the World B-Boy Battle that's coming up in the summer here. We have, there's so many events that are coming up. Like literally every week, every month, there's another event coming up here in LA. We have the 4Youth program that starts the first week of June here, and then we have a couple cool things. I'm doing a break sports summer camp, and we'll be doing some ranking at an all B-girl event out here, which is going to be really cool. So there's a lot of things going on. You can check my IG page. I always post up a bunch of things that we're doing, and I'll share some stuff with you guys so you can post it up as well.
Dope. And then any shout outs you want to give to people who've been supporting you since day one, or family and supporters?
Definitely. Well, that's a hard one. It's a big list. I'm mad affiliated. I'll start off with my immediate family. I'm not able to do what I do without the support of my immediate family. It started off with my parents. They've been my father's our manager. He's a drummer and a race car driver and a martial artist. And my mother's an artist, and she was a president of a car club. So how perfect could I want? Starting off with that, and because it was Memorial Weekend, big respects to my grandfathers. Both of them fought in World War II, and my grandmother's major support system for me over these years. So it starts with family, right? My wife and my kids, they've been going through this with me this whole time. It's 22 years I've been married now, and my wife and I have written a lot of those songs that you see on my platform. And soon after, my children, they grew up on stage with me, performing at these colleges and things like that. So big respects to my original crew, Radioactive, Universal Zulu Nation, Rocksteady Crew, United We Stand, TGO, my crew, Media Circus, of course, my dance company, Breakbeat Assassins, to all of my affiliated companies that I work with out there. of course, to my record label, to Essence, VIP, Royal Air. And, you know, we have a lot of cool things that we're doing right now. And we're in talks with a couple cool companies to do something really big. I'm just holding the horses to make sure it's done, you know, we can do it the right way and, you know, following Essence lead on this one. So I appreciate you taking time to, you know, chill.
Yeah, definitely an honor. We're gonna post this after it's done. You'll see a whole bunch of clips because you've given so much history, and I see why they say you're a hip hop historian. Like you walked us through all the different lanes, man. I appreciate it. Anything else you want to let people know before we get out here?
Yeah. So for all those out there, you can check me out on all platforms. King ZG. That's music, breaks. I do a lot of different types of music. I do a lot of remakes and remixes and a lot of new releases about to surface. All of the soundtrack for Champ will be available very soon, which is another 40 tracks, which is going to be crazy. Be on the lookout for Champ. Be on the lookout for Hip Hop 101, No Easy Props. And of course, you know, what we're doing with Break Sport, it's about to set off in a whole different way. We just finished the sweatsuits and the reflective caps. We just finished all of those, and working on the new action figures right now. So get ready for some cool things. It's going to be summertime, and we're about to set it up.
As soon as you got the music, as Essence, Stop Beef from Radio, Money Man, I love breaking new songs to DJs, man. So if you got some heat over there sitting there, go ahead and send it to our way. We'll help push it out there for you, man.
I appreciate you.
All right, man. You have a great night, fam.
You too. Thanks for having me. Peace.